can I introduce Mr. Schreiber to talk, and I believe the title that you suggested was the, could you?
Management.
Management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bleathen, and thank you for inviting me. I'm rather flattered. What I'll try and do is share with you my experience in starting an industry from, literally a handful of people making models for a radio industry to now, which we have a family of some 8,000 people. I'll make it very short, because I would much prefer questions, so I know where your interests mainly lie, rather than doing a lot of talking to you. And that way you'll get the best out of me, I think, to cover the interest areas that you are really interested in. My whole management experience, of course, came from growing up in industry, as I say, with a handful of people. But in character, people don't really change. I strongly believe the spots on the leopard don't really change. And whether I was a youngster, as a Boy Scout, later as a student, and later on in life, it's the same sort of motivation that if I'm going to do something, it's got to be worthwhile. It's got to be very interesting and pleasurable to the best of my ability, but always like to be stretched. And that's when I find myself always best, and when the challenge does not allow me to relax. My hobby is my business. That is my hobby. I think I'm very fortunate. I don't look for any other hobbies, other than certain sports and my family. But I'm terribly involved in my business, but in every aspect. Whether it's the main boss, which is really the public, the consumer, without whom there is no reason for my existence, my company's existence, who buy the products that we produce. So they've got to be well served, and nothing is too much. The people who work with me, I work for them as much as they work for me. So really we're working together for a company. There is no such thing as, you are on the shop floor, you're a manager, so you've got a different status, or I'm the boss, that I've got a special parking place for my car. There's no such thing, and that was right from the beginning. And the interesting thing, you grow up and you think that's the natural way, but when you join suddenly a giant, which was Hotpoint, very different industry to what I've grown up with. I've grown up as a wood chopper. I'm an architect by profession or by training before I came to this country. And suddenly you're confronted with multiple fold of different trade unions, different habits, different ways of living. Schreiber organization was some 2,000 people, and we've joined with 6,000 people. It makes quite a difference. But I found that the reaction is very much the same. It's how we've grown up, and we've refined, we've grown up together what really the people want and so on, that Hotpoint received us with both arms. And although I thought it would take me some 2 years until I can persuade them with our way of life, it was less than a year. Within 9 months, they were very happy to throw off all their constraint, their shackles, they called it. That is like piecework, clocking in, different status, different canteens, 4 different canteens. One for the managing director with wines and cigars and drinks, and a chef and a waitress. The excuse was, well, that's where you must entertain your customers, so important people come from abroad and visit us. and down to then top management, middle management, supervisors, and then the others. And now we have reached one place only, and it's a restaurant, we call it. We don't call it canteen. And all that was said to me in the management were the worst hurt. You guys were the most difficult guys to persuade. Because once you've been in industry a long time, you like your little cozy ways. To break that down, I was very unpopular. And the reasons that they have told me are unbelievable, but they just weren't true. That how can you sit together with other people where they come in dirty old overalls with grease on the maintenance men, and a few, especially the ladies or the men, sit down in the same seat, or the people had to put a deposit down for the cutlery. And how can you trust with the cutlery? Or if you issue ashtrays, they will be pinched. Well, all I can tell you that none of that is true whatsoever. We have single status, and it's really one company. Now, I can go on a long way. So I'll stop almost now that Hotpoint have joined how we've grown up from a very small family company. We've been received with both arms, tremendous trust, and now after just over 6 years, I find life more appreciated, although one doesn't look for appreciation really, but better received than in Schreiber. In Schreiber, we had it for a long time already taken for granted. So I would like you to throw at me, very challenging questions, how does it really work? And I will develop with every question.
Can I ask, in asking your question, whether you remember it is a big room, particularly if you're sitting at the front, could you ask so that people at the back can hear the question?
Can you all hear me, by the way, at the back? Can you? So, it would help me if you would tell me, well, your name by all means, but I don't promise to remember, but from what walk of life you come from?
I'm Chaim. I work here as a teacher. I'm interested in the fact that you've removed one kind of either position of prestige or status in the restaurant example that you use. I wonder if you could extend that a little further to consider how you think you motivate the people under you if you take away what they sometimes regard as their normal privileged status.
The things that I've touched on are, of course, very much on the top. They're not themselves, they don't do anything. The main one, the undercurrent, the main one is to get them to work for the same company. And the way we've done that is people are paid different rates for different efforts, which are generally recognized according to their ability or what responsibility they would like to accept. But other than that, there is one very strong binding, I call it, it's the mortar between the bricks. It's profit sharing. And when we go public, although we have got a partnership with very much a public company, GEC, but we're still a private company because the partnership is with a family and my colleagues. It's not just Schreiber family. It's real participation when the law of the land will allow participation in shares at the most favorable and most favorable conditions. Profit sharing, good communication, right down to the grassroots. When I say communication, it's not communication of orders. Communication, how does the company do? What makes us tick? What is our aim in life? How does the public feel about this? Total involvement, we find is terribly meaningful, and it makes people's jobs very interesting. What I, as the manager, what I aim at and drive at is, to me, being in industry and just purely financial investment and return with all its ratios is a two-dimensional thing. It's the width and the breadth, and you multiply it and get a certain result. That would not make me tick. I look for the third dimension in depth. That is a satisfaction of seeing people's life to be improved, better quality of life. So we really go into the quality of life. And if you ask me any questions, how far, I will be pleased to answer you. Above all, as I said, the consumers, the customers, to be really satisfied. And any letters written directed to managing director by name or without a name in general, or even letters to my parent company, to Lord Nelson or Lord Arno Weinstock, they all come to me, they're all read by me. And although we started off with hundreds of letters, it's boiled down to less than 2 handfuls a month. They're being attended to whether I'm abroad or not, but I still read it. And then sometimes I would change the system because I can see how we've dealt with the letter. So you get the pulse of the thing. And so do the people who are responsible for the particular thing. And one area where maybe I'll have opportunity to talk to about is the after-sales service. And maybe if we've got any married people here, you might have some experience, where we have changed completely the hot point image from the worst service to one of the best in Europe now. And it's the same engineers. We haven't changed basically the engineers. And we've got a very much larger family of washing machines and refrigerators to service, and yet it's done more meaningful, pleasurable, and of course the customer's much more satisfied. So we've got profit sharing. We haven't achieved yet sharing, except with some of my senior colleagues, because when I have done that, then the family has put certain shares, well in fact 10% of the shares in a trust for the staff. The staff have got those shares, and since then we had legislation after legislation which forbid, I think Barber was one of the first, which we could not do that any longer. A very good management tool we found, and I copied the CS Rover from the States, and that is a suggestion scheme without any names. Anybody who's got a suggestion to offer the company, as long as it's not a designer on design, you've got to come away from that. We share 6 months of saving with that particular person. Of course, it is tax-free, which is very useful to know. We found, why do I mention the CS Robert, there are many suggestion schemes working in this country, but if you have to put a name to it, it becomes biased. The foreman who has to look at it, thinks that you want his job and so on. We found just with a number, you tear off the ticket with a number, and then we declare how much that particular award has won, and the man who's got that number comes to the cash desk and he gets paid. It's as simple as that, and it works, very meaningful. So you're engaging the brains of the people rather to work for the company than against the company. Now, I'm in a very happy position to have not only the people working for me, but their families work for me. Because these people go home, and tell their wives or their sons or their fathers and their sons what a wonderful company that is. So they commit themselves. Once they've committed themselves in their own home, imagine Harry not wanting to come into work because he gets paid whether he comes to work or not. We have that sort of scheme. Well, his wife would kick him out because he would lose his job. So you've got the whole family working for us, rather than going home and say, oh, that terrible company, you're fed up, and of course the family is against you. So that's the sort of experience we get.
May I finish my question? That you said that you aim for quality of life. You also just now spoke of people working for you. I'm wondering whether, when you talk about quality of life, it is perhaps your idea of a good life, or whether perhaps you're prepared to accept that other employees might have a different version of a good life. I'm wondering whether what you're describing sounds
faintly patriarchal?
Yeah, it's been very often suggested that we are verging on the, what do you call it, like the Japanese.
Yes, yes.
But it isn't really because of that. I strongly believe that quality of work comes with quality of life. And quality of life is both at home and it works. The canteen to be, the restaurant to be the number one. People do like to spend their break in a good environment. Then, of course, the place of work, noise, temperatures, everything else, cleanliness, tidiness. I'm a madman for tidiness in the factory as much as in my home. Now, of course, what we offer is life assurance. Everybody is insured for 2 years. Salary, full salary, if something happens to him that is at work, on holiday, or at night. So that's a little bit, there's so many people who are just not insured for life. Now for the family it's very meaningful. They can relax a little more. Bupa is available to everybody by both sides paying. It's available to everybody. Some people won't have it on principle, but very few, in fact. We're going towards single status. In Schreiber, we've grown up in single status, other than the salary. Cars are provided when your job requires a car. Loans on the same term for directors or for employees right down to the grassroots, up to 6 months of their salary. If it's for 2 years, it's tax-free. It's interest-free. If it's for 5 years, minimum 5%. That was agreed with the tax people. Otherwise, it would be as a gift, and therefore there would be taxed on it. Now, loans are not given out because he owes money to the bookmakers or because he wants to buy himself a better car. It is usually either for putting down mortgage, extension of homes, pleasant or unpleasant, whether it's some tragedy in life, somebody's got to be supported, you need a certain amount of capital, possibly for education, although for there we have got, I've forgotten what you call now, we pay for education for certain, what do you call it?
Education trust.
Yes, I haven't got it right. Or pleasant, people getting married, they need a certain amount of capital. So really we try and help that their homes are to be bettered. In other words, the betterment, the quality of life, both at work and at home. And that produces a better environment to do the job or work, whatever their place is. It's very much more meaningful because they're not being harassed. I think I mentioned that piecework is a dirty word with me. I would not have any industry, I would not in fact have anything to do with any work if it's measured by piecework. Or whether it's group bonus, individual bonus, or line bonus, no matter. Profit sharing is the main thing. And profit sharing is achieved not by only more sweat, it's by better work, by producing good work and not rejects and so on, and caring, switching off lights when you go for the tea break, watching me that I shouldn't waste, watching other people, suggestion, should be, if I get a bad advert in the Express, which is about £28,000 for a coloured page, and it hasn't come off right, I'm being questioned, and my management is being questioned, was that a wise decision to do? And so on. So we've got complete involvement.
You said earlier that you had a single structure firm and you placed your only differentiation on salary, and prior to that you said that salary was based upon effort. Could you describe how you evaluate that effort, or what your wage settlement fixing system is?
I believe I didn't say just effort. I said effort and responsibility. The responsibility is number one. we are fortunate that having grown up from a very small family to 2,000 people, I would say most of our managers have grown up from the grassroots, all by promotion, most of them I would say. Of course in Hotpoint it isn't, so there's much more professionalism there. Obviously a manager who's responsible for a small plant or a larger plant, depends how wide his responsibility, or financial director or financial manager, service line managers or departmental managers, they all have a market value. And we pay the market value. But any other things, although I must say in Hotpoint we've still inherited the GC pensions, which is excellent, but it's not quite equal for everybody. We have anything coming nearer to the same, but in proportion. So the salaries vary according to responsibility, number one, I would say. And certain responsibilities need much more effort. That is really the answer. It is paid according to that. So.
Gareth Randalls, mechanical engineer at Roussel Laboratories. We operate a similar system to yourselves, and since I joined the company 2 years ago, I've heard sort of rumours amongst a fair few people in the company that the size of the company, which is about, on our side, is about 550, has meant that they've lost a lot of personalisation. Now I want to know if, as you grew from, you said, a few people to 2,000, did you find at any stage that you tended to lose this personalisation, your contact with the people? And even more so when you combined with Hotpoint. And if so, you know, if you didn't, how did you manage to avoid it?
It takes a lot of effort, and I would say complete dedication. My work is my hobby, and the time is completely dedicated towards the work. There isn't a plant. I have some 3 and 5, 8 plants. There's no plant that is not visited, not just visited, but visited and spoken in a canteen to a mess meeting once a year. I attend to as many monthly trade union management meetings as I can. I read all the minutes from all the monthly meetings. Every plant has got religiously a monthly meeting between the unions and management, which is minuted, and I read them all. And then I tick them off, any queries, I know what's happening, and then I will discuss certain things which I like or dislike. We've tried something for the first time ever in Hotpoint last year to discuss with the trade union people from all the plants in our showrooms in Baker Street in London, with a very ordinary lunch, to discuss the future of wages. We were right in the midst of terrible escalating inflation, and it was a matter, we were then at 16% and the predictions were over 20%. And we had to come to an agreement on wages. And it's unbelievable that by discussion, by taking away the bluff, because there was a lot of bluff on both sides before you come to really negotiate. If the trade union mean to settle for 10%, they'll ask for 20%. If management want to settle about 10%, they say, well, try 5 and 6 and play hard to get. So there's a bluff, and nobody knows where you're going to finish up. And if one line hardens up, and then strikes or other constraints are threatened, and usually, you pay very much more. A very good example is the steel strike, really, which was, unless it was really designed to be a strike, it couldn't have been done in a more clumsy way to offer unrealistic 3%. The surprising, or to me not surprising, is that the people who are receiving the award and the people who are giving the award, their opinions doesn't vary very much. I doubt whether there's 2% in it. I mean, we're all in it together, aren't we? We know the environment. We know how the company is doing. We know what what we ought to give in order to stay still, so that we don't want to go back on our standard of living? Or, can we vote ourselves more? I would like to be challenged that both trade union men, if you would be very truthful, and management, and the same people, it's all about people, isn't it? They've got the same idea within 2%, no more than that. And yet when it comes to the arguing table, it has to be exaggerated. It's bad, it's very bad for all. Now, we wanted to negotiate an 19 months agreement, because we used to be September, and we thought April is a very much better time. In fact, the 19 month is up this April. And I thought about 20% over 19 months. I thought it was going to go high, but then it will lower down. I don't negotiate. Being the managing director, I don't negotiate. I've got my own personnel director and office and so on. And I played hard to get. But the ASTMS union and all the other TGU, all the unions, they said, well, look, Mr. Schreiber, come on, you didn't call us here without having something on mind. So they pressed me very hard, and until I mentioned something. And they mentioned something, and we were dead on line. And that was accepted in all the plants. The union didn't like it very much, the outside representatives, because they thought, well, what's our position? Where do we come in? But since then, no, they very quickly said, no, that's all right. We're going to think more ahead now. We don't have to just battle over today. Let's think, how can we better ourselves? How can we knock the Italians out? Suddenly, you work as a one nation. I wish it would be. Or as one company with the outside enemy, which is the competition. Now, once you are on that road, you're winning. Now, I don't want you to think that everything is marvelous. We have gone through a traumatic experience because of the outside environment, and I'll try to be non-political. The outside environment is something we can't control except in the ballot box. And the outside environment caused us great turbulence and disturbance. And if we would have wanted to keep the ship undisturbed, on course, ignoring all the outside weather, we could have collapsed. And the people wouldn't have liked it, and we wouldn't have liked it. So we had to have an enormous amount of work sharing. We had to have some redundancies. We nearly closed the factory. We changed our mind, because closing a factory is closed forever. And as long as there was life, there was hope. So people will do anything but not closing an actual plant. And we have been big enough to make a U-turn. I can't see anything wrong with a U-turn. In fact, we're making zigzags. It's like a driver. If you go in the wrong direction, if you don't turn back, I mean, there's nothing to be proud of. I'm trying to be non-political. But in fact, in industry, I've got to make zigzags. I don't know if you heard what I said. It's not just a simple U-turn. So we've got a traumatic experience, but it's strengthening us. It's strengthening us, because I can see that the water underneath is very solid behind me. It's really the railing around me. We had on Schreiber side